So, Eugene Onegin by Alexander Pushkin is this intensely elaborate, like 1300 or something like line prose poem, but it's in the form of a kind of a novel, or that's kind of the way I kind of saw it. Although there's obviously there's plot, there's this and that, but it's this intriguing kind of thing going on with the character of the kind of a archetype at that point in Russia of the superfluous man, that a lot of people try to contend with, a lot of different writers, especially namely Goncharov, like with Oblomov as well, was the superfluous man, somebody who just spends their, I believe I reviewed that book, yeah, got it right here, Oblomov, if you haven't seen it, but yeah, it's, you know, it's like this superfluous man, you know, like excess, there's whatever's going on, there's too much of it, like there's, and that's what we have with the title character, Eugene Onegin. He is something like 26, I think, and he's a kind of French dandy, or I'm sorry, not French, I'm getting stuck with Julian Sorel. He is a Russian dandy, in the, yeah, this is a 1825, I think, around early 1800s, and they kind of were everywhere at that time. There were these people that attended balls, they attended parties, and all these great gatherings, and there were kind of, anybody who was anybody, and they were clearly up there in kind of the echelon of Russian society, and the aristocracy, and basically, Onegin is, but he's also kind of tiring of that, and he starts out kind of in the middle of him about to inherit his father's retirement, or no, his retirement, or he's about to inherit his father's estate, and which prompts us into like one of my favorite ever kind of tongue-in-cheek, ireful, pithy remarks, I think, from Onegin, which goes something like, when will the devil come for you? Like, as I trot around, I always like, as I wait, and you know, for that money, like, when will the devil come for you? Like, he's waiting for, in other words, he's waiting for his father to die so he can basically just get all of his money and just kind of like take it and run and basically do whatever he wants with it, which is kind of the not the most moral thing to do, I guess. He's basically, yeah, but he doesn't have scruples. He doesn't have no qualms doing this. He's kind of just, you see a lot of depictions of him. He's just always like kind of just, you know, curled over, like just like not, his emotions aren't invested in what he's doing a lot. And so he ends up attending one of these balls and of this lady named Olga, and she is of high society too, and he. But instead he's not really attracted to her. There's this Lenski guy, Alexander Lenski, and he introduces him, Onegin, to a series of different people, and he's like, you should definitely go after this Olga lady. But Olga ends up being kind of obnoxious and a little bit too not his type, just a little bit too eager to rush in, and a little bit too superficial for him, even for him, which is surprising, right? I guess you see the foil, like, it's like, well, I mean, Onegin's kind of facile, and he's not kind of superfluous, obviously, but he's, that you get the sense that, of course, he's longing for somebody naturally, so like that attachment, he's going to be attracted to somebody who's maybe more scrupulous and assiduous, and maybe less and more maybe deeper than him. Which is what happens. He ends up falling in love, not with Olga, but with her sister, Tatiana, who's a shy and meek 17-year-old, who is, actually does return Onegin's affections, and actually kind of, what happens is, like, it's a little bit of a thing where he falls for her, but he doesn't show it out at all. Like, he just keeps it all inside, and Tatiana actually ends up writing this, like, very long, beautiful letter to him, and he ends up just being like, when they see each other next, he's like, you should be careful not to do that, you should be careful not, don't be so eager to show yourself, or, you know, and he kind of breaks her heart, and this is kind of like, you know, it's separated into 3 acts, I believe, and it's perfect for the stage too. Hence, there's probably been a number of productions for it. But yeah, it's classical Russian literature, obviously. But what ends up happening is Onegin kind of feels bad about it, but ends up attending another party, and by this time he's just tiring of all these balls and all these parties, so he's goes there kind of reluctantly, and he ends up. I'm just gonna check to see if that's recording. Cool. Not sure it does that thing. Anyway, so he ends up attending one more at the behest of his friend Lenski, the poet guy, his friend, and he ends up challenging him. Lenski ends up challenging him to a duel, and which isn't surprising. It's classic Pushkin fashion. Pushkin died at a duel around the age of 36, I think. And you could argue that it was pretty petty, or is this or that, or there's another thing I read by him called Egyptian Nights and Other Stories, I think, and which the characters also partake in kind of these impetuous duels that are very about status and are very about kind of proving one's proving one's kind of prowess, I guess, at the trigger in this and their aim, and there's a lot of honor and dishonor to it too, shame, remorse too, and what happens is Onegin ends up unwittingly killing his friend Alexander Lenski. He's like, and he's just shocked by it, and he's like, he kind of cowers into society, and he kind of decides to kind of take it easy, not really show up to anywhere, not to really becomes more reclusive, and what ends up happening is that's what it was. Tatiana was supposed to have a name party, like a kind of baptismal name party, I believe, for her 18th birthday, I think. And then he kind of like doesn't show up, but then what happens is like Tatiana ends up having the upper hand in the end. She ends up marrying somebody else, falling in love with somebody else, and the second that Onegin finally shows his true emotions, finally stops piddling around and slacking and, you know, being kind of a cad about anything. Like, if, you know, the second he shows true empathy and feeling and romantic love for Tatiana, she rejects him, and she's like, "No, you've toyed with my heart too long. It's like I'm gonna be with somebody who actually cares about me." And he's just, you know, he's broken by this, and which I guess is a good thing for him to actually feel something for once. But yeah, that's Eugene Onegin in a nutshell. But yeah, it's a classic thing. Russian literature at the time was big on these, you know, the superfluous man, and, you know, the excess of the time, and you know, especially with like when serfdom was abolished in, I want to say, I think 1848. That a lot of them, you know, kind of a lot of serfs are now acclimating and trying to get jobs and stuff, and some of the jobs are kind of BS jobs, maybe a little bit easy to get. So like this whole thing about status now between those who had the land, and, you know, the Oblomovs, or the Onegins, or those who were upper class and actually had estates. Now all of a sudden we're competing with their own people that used to serve them, and it's like this. They all of a sudden like started immigrating into society, and they were extricated of all these kind of labor jobs that were pretty much meaningless if you think about it. Like, your birthright, and you were kind of given this thing, and which is what Dead Souls talks about too, with Gogol, which I think I reviewed as well. Talks about how kind of meaningless all the number of like these souls you had, and, you know, like, you know. But anyway, so that's Onegin, Eugene Onegin by Alexander Pushkin. So I'd like to possibly review his next Egyptian Nights one of these days as well. But yeah, check it out. Thanks for watching.